Hi everybody. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to automate sales plan generation in Revit projects. A while back, I was working on a high-rise project with 469 apartments, and we needed to generate 3 sales plans for each apartment. And as you can imagine, it would take ages to do it manually. But luckily, it's not so complicated to automate, and I'm going to teach you how to do that step by step. This is one of my favorite scripts because I still remember how I would click a button in Revit, go make some coffee, and come back to hundreds of sales plans generated. And the best part was watching the reaction of my team members and bosses when they realized what just happened. And I want you to experience this too. It's going to be really fun to get this kind of result. So get yourself a cup of tea or coffee and let's automate sales plans generation in Revit. And first of all, obviously, we're going to open Revit and I want to take you through the project and explain what we're going to do, what we have, and what you need in your project. This is a very simplified project. You can see there are just a few apartments flying in space, and they are also simplified. It's just rooms, walls, doors, and windows. It's very, very simple, everything, and there are not so many of them. But nevertheless, it's going to be a great example for you to learn. And our goal is to create sales plans for each apartment individually. And later, in other parts of this series of tutorials, I'm also going to show you how to place them on the sheets and how to kind of control your parameters. But first, we're going to focus on view generation and kind of cropping them correctly. There are also a few apartments at an angle, and it means that this is going to be an extra challenge to rotate our views correctly. But I'm going to show as well. Another important thing you can notice that I have 2 building parts. I have right here part number A and right here on the right, part number B. And this is important because oftentimes, even if you work with a single building, sometimes you might start working with a project where you might have multiple building parts. And it's important because, for example, in building B, we might have an apartment number 15, but we can also have apartment number 15 in building A. And it's important to differentiate between. The way I'm gonna do that, I prepare just a bare minimum of parameters. Normally I have way more parameters when I work on the projects, but in here we need obviously an apartment number. And then we need to make sure that we differentiate between building A and B. And this is the bare minimum we need for this first tutorial to generate sales plans. Also, I want to share the biggest tip on kind of managing parameters in rooms. Because I was working on a really large project and I often needed to verify that I have correct parameters. So when you have any parameter, I recommend you create this kind of overview plans for each level only for one parameter at a time. Later, when you create your area calculations, make sure to include it together so you can often verify where all the numbers coming from. For example, in here I can see the occupancy. These are the balcony living spaces. This is the living spaces. And it's really important to differentiate in your sales calculations. Then in the project part, for example, you can verify that all apartments separated correctly. Then apartment numbers also, you can verify that everything is nice. And the reason here is often when you work on Revit projects, for example, you maybe made some changes to this apartment and just something happened that there is another number, right? Let's say that this one is 22. On these sales plans, it's really easy to notice like, okay, there should not be any green here, so something is off. You could kind of verify, and obviously you can fix it so you get correct values later on. But this is kind of later on when you make the calculations in Excel and other exports. For now, we're just going to focus on the graphics, but still, it's important to have the right parameters so you can create the right view crop boxes. Oh, and by the way, this module is going to be available to all Learn Revit API members. Just have a look in the Views and Sheets module, and there's going to be a separate lesson for that with all the files and code snippets. Now, I think we are ready to start automating, and our goal for this lesson is to generate plans like this. I already have results here. For example, if I scroll through, you can see I'm going to create individual view for each apartment like this. We're also going to be rotating it correctly, and we also will show the attached group so we can see some tags. And later, it can also be extended to even more functionality. So first of all, let me just delete all of these plans because we're going to generate it with code. We're going to start with absolute scratch where we don't have any of that. And first thing first, you need to create a button with pyRevit. And don't worry, if you are new to pyRevit, it's also very simple to do. I have a whole tutorial where I'm going to provide you the starter kit and walk you through how to create your own toolbar in less than 5 minutes. And it's going to look something like this, and I'm going to explain how to create buttons. And then I want you to create a button, and inside I'm going to open and start coding with my regular template. There's the name and description of the button, UTF-8 encoding, a few regular imports that we always need, a few variables such as UI doc and doc, and then we're going to start coding in the main. Whenever I start coding, first thing first, I usually grab a piece of paper and a pen and I write all the steps one by one. For example, in this case, to automate sales plans, we need to first get some rooms, then we're going to sort them by apartments, and so on. Another alternative, we can also create comments and then follow along. And it's a really, really important step because it helps you think through the code you're about to write. And also, you might notice that somewhere between step number 2 and 3, maybe you need to make extra checks. So let's do that together. So first of all, you might need to ensure that you have parameters loaded. I'm not going to cover it in this lesson. This lesson, I'm going to simplify everything to the bare bones of automating sales plans. But the first real step that we need to do is actually get rooms plus sort them by apartment numbers. This is going to be the first step. For the second one, we're going to create a floor plan for each apartment. Then for the first step, we need to calculate the new crop box for this apartment. Then once we're going to calculate the new crop box, we need to set new crop box and activate crop view, because by default, it's not going to be activated. And also, I want to show attached groups so we can see some tags in our kind of sales plans. We could also assign view templates and so on, and I might talk a little bit about this, but again, I'm going to simplify a lot so you can extend it to your own needs. Oh, and by the way, while you're looking at here, I mentioned that there are a few apartments that are rotated, so we will need to address it somewhere in the code as well. For now, I'm just going to add it in the end, rotate apartments, because this is going to be an important step, but we also might do it in the end because this is one of the trickiest one. And this is pretty much it for this lesson. These are the main steps. Maybe we're going to do something in between. Also might talk about other steps you might do, but let's just keep it simple. First of all, let's start with the first one, get rooms and sort them by apartments. To get rooms, we're going to use filtered element collector. We're going to provide our doc, which refers to our active project. Then we can filter it by category, built-in category rooms, and 2 elements. There's no need to filter instances or types because there are no types of rooms. Next, we need to sort these rooms by apartment numbers. For that, I like to use default dictionaries. We need to import it from collections, import default dictionary. I'm going to create sorted rooms equals default dictionary. And we want list to be default value. The reason I use default dictionary instead of regular dictionary is that this way, all the keys that I'm going to use, even if they're not in the dictionary, it will create at least empty list. It's just going to save a few lines of code, and I like how it works. Now for room in all rooms, we're going to iterate, and we need to read a few parameters. This is where things going to get different for all of you, because probably you have different parameter names to me. In my case, let me select one of the rooms. Right here, I have a parameter called apartment, and then there is a number. And this is a text parameter because what we experience sometimes we need to make 20A, 20B, and so on. So I like to keep it as text. Also, this is also a group, but we're not going to really work with groups in this lesson. In the previous, I used to automate the script using the groups because there is more information available. It was a little bit more convenient, but I want to make it more universal and make so everybody can automate it just by using rooms. And later, we also will need to use this part parameter as well. So let's go with p apartment equals room. I'm going to use lookup parameter method. I just need to provide the name of your parameter. In this case, apartment. And for the second one, it's going to be part, like this. In my case, both of them are text parameters. Therefore, I can read it as string like this. And you can also verify when you go to Revit, go to add-ins. Hope you already have Revit lookup add-in, and this allows you to snoop selection. If not, just go and install it. I have tutorials on my channel how to do this and so on. In here, you can go to parameters, and let's say you're gonna look for your parameter apartment right here. And in the storage type somewhere here, you will see that this is a string parameter. Therefore, you need to use as string. In case you use integers, you would need to use as integer. If you use kind of numbers, you would have to use as double and so on. You can verify your storage type here if you're not sure, but probably you know what's the type of your parameters. Now we have part and apartment, and we're going to combine them to create new unique key. Because as I mentioned, in both building A and B, we can have apartment number 15, for example. So I'm going to create here a key, and I'm just going to concatenate a bunch of different values. So it's going to be P part and P apartment. So as you know, this is our string. We created these two placeholders. And with the format method, This one is going to take the first placeholder. This one is going to take the second placeholder. And you can create as many placeholders as you want. Just make sure you have the same number of arguments after that. Once you have the key, we can take our sorted rooms, use the key, and we're going to append room. This is where default dictionaries come in useful, because by default, we don't have any keys in our dictionary. But since we're using default dictionary, all new values which did not exist will have empty list by default. Therefore, we can use append. If we would use just dictionary like this, we would have to verify that if key not in sorted rooms and so on, and then we would have to add some logic there. But this is going to simplify things. All right, the first step is pretty much complete. Let's just make some print statements to verify that we get it correctly. So let's just add here emoji, test results. Oh, by the way, if you want to make emojis in your code, hold window key, click on dot. It's going to open this emoji picker. You can kind of go through and search what you want. You can write here fire and select whatever you want. All right, to test results, we're going to for key value in sorted rooms items. We're going to print key and value. And also we're going to write total, this many apartments, and format, length, sorted rooms. Okay, let's go to Revit, click on the button and see if we misspelled anything or if everything works correctly. And if everything works, you should see this kind of print statement. You can see in the beginning you have building A 18, building B 15. This refers to the value of your parameter. Then you get a list of rooms which share the same value of this parameter. And in the end, it says that total we have 47 apartments. All right, let's go back. And now for the second step, we need to create floor plan for each apartment. For that, let's actually open Revit documentation and have a look at how do we create our floor plans. So I'm going to go to rvtdocs.com and then I need to select version that I'm working with. I'm working with 2025. And then let's search for view plan class. When you want to create elements in Revit API, basically there are like three places to look at. First of all, the class of the element you're trying to create. In this case, that's going to be fine because there is create method. You can also look in the document because often there is like document, new floor, and so on. And then there is also a creation factory, I think it's called. It's also related to document. I'm not going to go in depth in this lesson, but just know that there are multiple places where to look. And in here, we're interested in this syntax right here. And you can see that we need three arguments. We need document, view family type ID, and level ID. If you want to learn more about them, scroll down and here in parameters section, you can see that document has to have type of document, element ID, element. You can also see descriptions, but in this case, it's very simple. We need our document for the project. We need default family type, over view that we're creating, and level ID. Overall, very simple. So let's go back to the code and do that. Since starting from this step, we will need to make changes to our project, we need to use Revit API transaction. This is like a guardian of our projects, which doesn't allow any changes to Revit API projects unless you start and commit a transaction. Therefore, let's write here, create transaction for changes. We need to define transaction itself. Inside, we provide document and the name of the change. In this case, let's call it EF sales plan generator. Then we're going to start. We need to commit, and all changes have to be here in between these two statements. Let's also add here a little lock. I like to use this emoji so you can see we're opening it here, we're closing it here. You don't have to use these emojis. I just like to use them in my tutorial so it's clear what's going on. Now let's take the second step right here, create floor for each apartment. And for that, we need to write for key, then what is it, list rooms, in sorted rooms items. And then we're going to create floor plan for each apartment. As you remember, to create it, we need to use view plan, which refers to the floor plans. Then there is create method. We need document. With Control Q in PyCharm, you can see kind of this docstring. The second one was view family type ID. Let's call it plan type ID. And the third one was level ID. Level ID. We already have this one. We imported it earlier here. Not imported, but defined here. Then for the plan ID, we can actually get default one. It refers to these plans right here. You can see I only have one, but I could come here and say, you know what, I want to have EF floor plan. Have a few different settings here. Then I would have here multiple ones. Let me just cancel it. I just want to have one. Now, the easiest way would be to get the default one, and it's going to be plan type ID equals document. Then there's a method get default element type ID. Inside, we need element type group argument, and it's an enumeration, meaning it has all the values to choose from. In this case, we need floor plan, this one, view type floor plan. Click on that one. This should get us the element ID of whatever is default kind of floor plan. The level ID, we need to look inside the rooms. This is also a little important step here because earlier here, we just used apartment and part, but sometimes you might need to sort by level too. Because if you have mezzanine floors, obviously you're going to have two floors. And you have to have a little bit different logic. You have to get the first one, the second one, keep them a bit separated to create two different plans to place together on the sheet. We're not doing that. We're keeping everything simple. Also in here, I forgot to mention, but you might need to ignore basement storage units. Because normally what? You're going to create some room in the basement for the storage, and you're going to assign the same apartment number, the same part, and so on. They're going to be related. And if you do that, make sure that you kind of exclude it from this calculation. Normally you would either create separate plan, put it on the sheet as well, or at least you would get the values of the square meters so you can write how much of the storage unit is available for each apartment. Again, we're simplifying things. I'm not going to do that either. Let's just write here PS and let's get back. So to get the level, right, we're going to have a look in the list of rooms. I'm going to just grab one of the random rooms. I'm going to assume that all my rooms are on the same level. Otherwise, you need to address that. And then we're going to have what is the level of this room. So I'm going to write list of rooms. I'm going to take the first one. And then let's go back. Select one of the rooms with add-ins right here in Revit lookup, Snoop selection. And in here, I'm going to search for level. You will notice that there are two ways. We can use level ID, which is very common. It's inherited from the element. And then there's also level for spatial elements. Normally, I like to use level ID. And in this case, we also need element ID, so it makes sense. But otherwise, you could also use the level to get actual element. So let's just come back here. We're going to write level ID equals room level ID. Oh, by the way, I just realized that I forgot one really important step. Because in here, we're going through all the rooms. We need to ensure that we're adding to our dictionary only kind of rooms which are apartments. In this case, I usually verify if it has any number, then it's an apartment. So we could write if p apartment, then we're going to do this. This way, you're going to get rid of all the utility rooms, all the rooms in the basement, all these kind of open spaces and so on. I just realized that I missed this step. Now, let's go back here. So we're getting our room, we're getting our level ID, getting our plan type ID by using get default element type. And this is enough to create view plan. Let's add here a variable like new plan equals view plan create and so on. It's only going to work if you're using the kind of start and commit statements. If you did not use it, let me show you. I'm going to comment it out. Let me just run it. You'll see that it can execute the first part and then says, oops, modifying is forbidden because document has no open transaction. This is what it refers to. You have to kind of start it and you have to commit it as well. And this way, now have a look. I'm going to come back, click, and we can verify. And on the line 69, nice, we have an error transaction name. Okay, I misspelled something. You can see transaction, whatever I wrote should be here transaction like this. Let's try it again, run it. This time, boom, have a look right here. I have lots of different plans appear here. You can see all of them right here. I'm gonna click on them. Obviously, these are just plans where you can see everything. But we're gonna fix it. Also, I don't like the detail level. And also, I don't like that we don't have any names. So let's go and fix it quickly. So new plan name is gonna be, can actually use this key we created earlier. So it's gonna be named like this for each level. But also add here maybe something sales plan. Yeah, so it's gonna be sales plan, building A, 15. Yeah, why not? So that's gonna be our name. For the detail level, we need something like detail level. And then there should be view, detail level. We can choose fine, coarse, or medium. I'm going to go with fine. Now, let's just quickly test it. So I'm going to make sure I remove all the rooms, run it. And now at least we have the right naming. And inside you will see that it looks a bit better because we're on the fine detail level. Control Z, I can go back to remove all the rooms. And let's go back to the code to the next step. The next step was calculate the new crop box. That might be a bit tricky, but it's actually very simple once I explain you how it works. So for that one, we will actually create a function because it's going to be a little bit lengthy one and it's going to be simpler to define it on top, separate from all the code. Let's call it get combined bounding box. And I'm going to explain just in a moment what we do. We will need our list of rooms and a view where we're kind of getting our bounding box. Here is the idea. Let me just open Revit. I'm going to explain what's going on. So in here, let me choose, for example, this apartment. Let's isolate it. And I'm going to explain what we're going to do. So as you know, in Revit and Revit API, we have bounding boxes, which is pretty much just kind of box that contains your element. For the door, for example, it would be something like this and so on. And our goal right now is to create one single bounding box that kind of contains everything inside. And we're going to use it to create a crop box. We're going to also create kind of offset to make it a little bit bigger, but I'm going to explain it as we go. The way we can define the bounding box, there are different ways, obviously, but we need a combined one. Means that we have to go through all the bounding boxes and we need to determine some coordinates and combine them. So the easiest way to create this kind of bounding box is to go through the rooms and calculate minimum and maximum points. If you're not familiar, in bounding boxes, minimum point refers to the bottom left point. This is going to be the minimum point. And the maximum point refers to the top right. This is going to be the maximum point. By using these 2 points, you can calculate everything. You can calculate this point by taking one value for minimum and maximum, calculate that one. You can also calculate what's in between, and so on. This is why usually you have only minimum and maximum. The way we're going to do this is, first we're going to define 2 points. I'm going to define right here, it's going to be our maximum. And then on the top, I'm going to define minimum. And I'm going to set the crazy values like a million coordinates there and there. It just have to be far apart. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go through each apartment individually, each room. And then we're going to check, okay, this is the minimum point and this right here is the maximum point. And we will just check if minimum point, which is this one, is smaller than that one, then this is going to be our new minimum point. And we're going to keep doing it until we get the most minimum point. So we're going to check it here, we're going to check it here, 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 this one and that one. And that one would be the smallest one because it's the most to the left and the most to the bottom. Therefore, this will be the most minimum point. And the same logic we're going to apply for the maximum. We're going to check what's this maximum, this maximum, this maximum, this, and eventually we should end up with that point right here. So in the end, our goal is to get this one as the maximum point, this one as the minimum point. And by using these 2 points, we'll be able to build our bounding box like this. Obviously, we'll also add the offset to see a bit more, but this is the logic. Now, I don't want to bore you with details, so let me just kind of paste the code I already prepared. And I'm going to explain the same logic I just showed you, but here. I know it looks a bit intimidating, but it's very simple, I promise you that. First of all, I'm going to define the offset, because if this is our apartment, I actually want to see a little bit more to see what's outside of it. So we're going to set 50 centimeters. I'm going to convert it from centimeters to internal units, because it has to be in feet. Then right here, we're going to iterate through all the rooms I provide. We're going to get the bounding box. This is how you get the bounding box from a specific view. If you don't get any bounding boxes, then something is wrong. We're just going to stop execution. And then we're going to create new bounding box. So as I said, first, I'm going to create this kind of starting crazy values. One is going to be very far to the max, the other very far to the minimum. You can see I defined this at the same time X, Y, and Z. And then we're just going to go through our bounding boxes of actual rooms. And we need to verify that the bounding box of apartment, and in this case, kind of 0, 1, and 2 refers to X, Y, and Z. It's actually, it should be like this. I have just made sure that it takes less space. So I'm going to make sure that if bounding box from room is smaller than our current bounding box, then we're going to update it. Then the same for the Y and Z. We're going to keep doing it until we have the smallest bounding box minimum point. Then the same for the maximum point. Once we have the smallest and biggest coordinates, we can create new bounding box. And we're going to obviously set the minimum point to be this point, maximum to this point. And this is also where you can see that we are setting the offset here. We're making sure that in maximum point we are adding it, right? So if this is your bounding box, in the maximum we're gonna add it. And in the minimum point, we're gonna subtract it. So this is kind of minus, this is kind of plus. And yeah, overall, just kind of follow along, just copy this code as it's written. I'm just gonna slowly scroll through. You can make pauses, just rewrite it in your own code. Again, if you are part of Learn Revit API platform, just go to the lesson and copy the code. You don't have to kind of waste time on that. Now let's kind of hide it. Now we can generate new bounding box. So our new bounding box is going to be get combined bounding box. And inside we need to provide our list of rooms, right? So this one goes first. Second one is going to be our new plan that we just generated right here. So this one goes here. Now we cannot really test it until we change the crop box. And let me check. Oh yeah, I have it here. So let's also make the next step, set crop box and activate crop view. Gonna go a bit quicker. Overall, it's not that complicated. There is, in your new plan, there is a property called crop box, and it takes bounding box as argument, or you can also get the current crop box. So we're gonna define the new one here. Then let's go to Revit. Make sure you don't have any plans, because you might get an error that you have the same names. I'm gonna click to create. Let's open one, and you can see nothing really changed. That's strange. And actually, everything is fine because we changed the bounding box. We just haven't activated the extents right here. As you can see, crop box, crop visible are not activated. I'm going to activate them. Now we can see that we're actually setting the correct bounding box. And in here, if I'm going to go from here to the side, you can see there are 50 centimeters on the left, 50 on the top. This is our offset. Because let me just go back. Because if in our function here, I would set it to 0. Make sure to remove all the rooms. Create them again. Because if we will do it like this, activate the crop box right here. You can see this way we wouldn't even see the walls, not even door shown completely, so we do need a little bit of offset. Therefore, I already set it 50 right here. It can be 20, 40, whatever. Now let's remove all these apartments. Oh, and we need to activate it right away so we don't do it manually. Again, new plan, there is a property called crop active and crop box visible. Just set them both to true, like this. Actually, I'm also going to move this one here, because here we're setting all the settings. It doesn't change anything. There's literally zero difference. I just like when the logic is similar when we combine code. Okay, so now let's just go and test it. I'm going to click here. It takes a few seconds, literally like 2 seconds. Click here, and now I can scroll and have a look through. And overall, that looks good. You can see that our apartments are fine. Some of them, you'll notice that we have rotation. So if I'm gonna, because you see, we have rotation here, we have rotation here, then here as well, and so on. And here we would have to rotate our view a little bit so we see it correctly. We're gonna do it as the last step because this is probably the trickiest one. And before that, first of all, I also wanna go through and activate attached groups, which are these ones, so we can see some tags. I prepared here 1 to 50. You can call it whatever you want. This will just show the room tags. We could also set the door tags inside of there, but I just didn't do because I quickly made this project based on another project. It's like completely just walls and rooms. Now to do that, let's go to the code and I'm gonna show you. So for that one, we will need to get the group where our rooms are related. This is obviously if you kind of group your apartments, which I really like to do. The way to do is we have a room here. We need to get a group from this room. The way to do this, we could just write group equals, there is room group ID property. And we're going to write dog get element and like this. So this is going to return us a group. If your elements do not have a group, just make sure that you write here if room group ID is not equal to element ID, invalid element ID. This way, you're going to ensure that you're not getting an error when you try to find the element. In my case, I'm just going to simplify it. I know that all my rooms are inside of groups, so I'm fine with that. If I get an error, probably something is wrong, I can go and fix it. So get a group. Now in here, down here, we can look at all attached groups. Then inside in the group, there is a method to get attached groups, and it's usually very long, so let's just verify it. I'm gonna look for the group class, right? Then we're gonna go to methods, and then there is that one. So it returns attached detail groups available for this group type. Exactly what we need. It's gonna return a set of element IDs, and this is how we use it. Doesn't need any arguments, just have to be called from the group itself. Let's go and test it, paste it here, like this. Uh, Now for attached group ID in all attached groups, we need to choose one of the groups. Or maybe you're gonna take one of the random ones, or first you check if you even get any. In my case, let's get the group itself, like this. And then we're gonna check. I wanna make sure that I only activate these kind of attached groups, 1 to 50. This is how I named it. It could be whatever, right? Attached group name here, blah, blah, blah. In a group name. And then we use another method. Let's go back to documentation. Oh, apparently we can show all available attached groups. Huh, interesting. We don't want to show all, we just want to show one specific one. So I'm going to take group, show attached detail groups. We need to provide view and detail group type ID. So let's copy this name, group, show attached detail group. And inside we needed a group ID and a view. For the view, we are using our new plan, which we created right here. For the A group, obviously, we're just using this A group. Oh, and actually, I made it opposite. It should be view, then the group. So let's put it first the view, then the group. All right, I think that should be enough. Let's go back and test it. I'm gonna click here, and I get an error. Name must be unique. Oops, also Revit crashed. For some reason, Revit 2025 crashes more than usual. But I'm gonna show you how to avoid it as well. Would you like to say recovery files? No, I don't care. Let me just reopen it. In general, when you code for Revit, just ensure that you back up all your projects. And if you work on active projects, just make sure you know what you do, because you want to avoid all the possible errors, and make sure you save all your work before you begin coding. Now, while I open Revit, let me just go, and I know exactly why the error happened, this one. In Revit API, for some reason, sometimes we cannot read the property name directly. I don't know why, it's some kind of bug, but we can avoid it by using element name get value. This is kind of internal getter of any property, because the property name comes from the element, and we can use get value. And then we provide here from what element we want to read it. This is a safe way to read your properties. And to avoid this kind of crashing Revit, I know that majority of you will not have this crashing issue. I did not have it in Revit 2023, but in 25, something is wrong at my machine. The way to avoid it, I think it's because of the transaction, because you crash between start and commit. So you can say, this is actually a good practice. So you can create try, do all of that. And then the except, we're gonna write T rollback. Then also, when you're gonna be in except, it's gonna suppress all the error messages, and this is not good. Therefore, let's import traceback. I wanna print traceback format x, and we need that one. This will print you an error message even though you're kind of suppressing it. This is really useful during development. After that, you can kind of comment it out when you put it in production. In here, let me find my button, and I'm gonna click on that one. This time you can see it goes through, it generates everything, and now it created all these levels. And by the way, the first time it crashed not because we read the attached group incorrectly, it's because we already had these views created. Because somewhere here we're setting this one, setting the new name to key, and if it already exists, it's gonna crash. The easy way to avoid it is to create a simple function, define rename view, new name. And I like to do it for I in range of 20. I don't like using while loops because if you forget to make an exit or break statement, then you're gonna kind of end up with an infinite loop. It's not good. Therefore, I just try for 20 times. I'm gonna say view name equals new name. Then with try, I'm gonna catch an error. If an error happens, I'm gonna just add a symbol in the end of a new name. So if my apartment plan was level 01, on the first iteration, it will add 1, 2, 3, and it will keep doing until it succeeds, right? Once it's gonna set it, let's make sure we break, because we only wanna set it once. And I think that's it, right? So we iterate, we're changing the name. Yeah, that should be enough. Let's scroll down somewhere here. Here. So rename, new plan, and key. I'm just gonna keep it here so you remember what's going on. Now look, if I'm gonna run it again, made an error, line 36. I skipped here in for I in range of 20. That's correct. Let's run it. Boom. Now you can see that we created all the duplicates. Now all of them have a star in the end. This is going to avoid you having extra errors. Now look, our attached group script working. We can see that we are now activating this attached group right here. This is great. Now let's come back. So this step is working successfully. This one works fine. Everything is looking good so far. Now, for this video, I just want to address one more step. As I mentioned, this is going to be the trickiest one, but not so complicated if you follow along. I think if I'm going to go to the first one, yep, you can see this is at angle, and we need to fix it. There are different ways to do that. In general, the way to do this is we need to find an angle. For example, this is the angle we want. This is what we have. We need to find this angle. I'm going to show you how to do this. And then to rotate a view, usually you grab your crop box, rotate, and then you rotate with the angle that you need. It has to be negative, and you can see now this is rotated. So we need to do the same with the code. This is a bit tricky because you need to determine the rotation angle. There are different ways to do this, and first of all, logically think of it. How would you want to do this? One way would be get any of the walls and use them as the vector and then rotate the view. The downside of that, if you have some apartments, maybe you have there, I don't know, instead of this one for whatever reason, you needed to make it like that. And if you would get this wall instead of the regular one, well, obviously you would use the wrong angle. So this is not ideal. What I like to use entrance door. Because normally you only have one entrance door in each apartment. Usually it has its own type. In my case, I even called it entrance door. And we could get this door. Then inside the door, add-ins, Revit lookup, snoop selection, we need to get rotation of the door. One way would be to get the wall, get the line of the wall, and then calculate it, but there's a simpler approach. Right here in the location, inside, you'll notice there is a point, but then there is also rotation, and this is in radians. So you can see rotation is 3.20 whatever. So we need this value. Once we have this value, we can get our crop box and we can make negative rotation of this value. And then that would give us exactly what we need. But this would rotate something like, I don't know, like this. Well, too much, but you get the idea, right? We're gonna eventually rotate it and it's gonna look just fine. Also, the best way would be to get the combined bounding boxes and make the crop after this. Then it's gonna be more accurate, but just gonna keep it simple. Just know that you can switch the steps to fix it. Now let's go and we need to get our doors. If you would work with groups and this is part of the group, that would be easy. In my case, this is not part of the group. I like to keep them separate. So we need to get this specific door related to our specific apartment. And the simplest way would be get all the doors only from this view that I see, right? And then determine which one is the entrance door. Because again, if you're going to take any door, you might end up with the door at an angle, which is not good. So let's go to the code and we're going to do it somewhere here. Fix view rotation. Now we need to get all doors in view. I'm going to call it view doors. And for that, use filtered element collector, doc. Then in here, we can provide second argument of the view. Then we're only getting elements from a specific view. And in this case, we want to get it from new plan. It has to be ID. Then of category, built-in category doors. Let's avoid types where element is not element type, two elements. Also, if you find filtered element collector intimidating, this is one of the easiest classes because it's one of the most reused ones. It's always going to be pretty much the same. The only thing that changes what the category you want. Do you want instance or types? And sometimes you would add here a view. That's it. And if you want a proper guide with lots of examples, I'm going to leave a link in the description. You can download my ebook about filtered element collector specifically. Now we're getting all doors. Let's print all the doors like this, because there is a little trick that I want to show you. Now you can see we're getting a list of doors for each apartment. All right, it actually works because in my previous testing, when I tried it, it did not get it on the first run because I need to commit it and then run it again. But it works now, which is strange, but I take that. I think I just had to activate the crop box because I think if I'm going to move it somewhere here, try to run it. Yeah, that was it. You can see that now I'm not getting any doors in my projects at all. But if I'm going to move this step after I set the crop box somewhere here, now it works. I did not know that. Now I know it too. Great. So we're getting a list of doors. Now we need to get one specific door. Now we need to get a specific door, which is going to be entrance doors. I'm going to use list comprehension. So get door for door in view doors. If, and we need to make here entrance in door name. In this case, this is going to work just fine. And this is going to return us a name of a view type. When you call it an instance, it's give you the view type in case of doors. We just want to make sure we verify this. Let's make it like this. And to keep track of what's going on, let's also print the key. I'm going to print key. Here's the door. And let's make some dashes to separate it. Let's go to Revit and we're going to test if we're getting specific doors. Now click on the button. I'm going to generate it. And here it is. Already can see a few things we have to address. So let's scroll through. First of all, sometimes you can have more than one door. Example A41. Let's find this A41, which is here. I'm going to open that. In here, I'm getting multiple entrance door, and this is because I can see the door from another apartment. If I'm going to select, you can see there is like 1, 2, and 3. In this case, it does not matter because all of them going to have the same angle, and I'm totally fine with that. So I'm just going to take any of them. It doesn't matter. Because in Revit lookup, if I'm going to go to Snoop selection, and as you remember, it was in location 163. Let's take another one. 163, and take another one, location. Well, this one has a different value, but I think it's because of flip, right? Because this and this one have the same flip, this one has another flip, so it adds 360 degrees. But it's gonna be exactly the same rotation in the end. Another issue I noticed that sometimes right here, I get an empty list. So in A24, we need to check what's going on. And oh, and in this case, I just haven't put any door here. Let me just drop something. This is entrance door. Uh, Another one here, A25. Yep. So let's see, do I have more than A29? It should be here. See, sometimes you can even notice errors that you're not supposed to have in your project. Okay, now I think it works. So let's come back and we need to take just one door. So it's gonna be entrance doors. We're gonna take the first one. In case we would have an empty list, we would get an error. So you could write here something like, if not entrance doors, then continue. Otherwise, we're gonna do this. Right? This is ensure doors are found. We're also gonna write here something like door not found in this apartment. But if it's found, we're gonna have our door right here. Now we need to get rotation, and as I told you, it's in door, location, rotation. Let's call it door rotation, like this. Now, the way we want to do, we could always rotate to the same angle as the door. So it would mean something like, oh, how do I make it? I think I make it something like that. A little more. So we could always make it like this. Or alternative, which is actually something I prefer, I like to keep it as close to original orientation as possible. And I just want to make it to the closest 90 degrees. So in this case, this wall, the closest would be if this one would be like this and like this. Then you're going to have minimum rotation. You're going to recognize your plans more. Because if you used to see your plan like this on your full plans, and it's rotated 180 on your sales plan, it's going to confuse you, trust me, because you will see that entrance. But you will see that entrance is not here, but here, and it's going to really create a few confusion. So we're going to find the closest kind of 90 degrees. So it's going to be 0, 90, 270, or 360. Well, 360 same as 0, so just one. So let's make here allowed rotations. And it's going to be just a list of all the values. They have to be in radians, so we cannot really write here 0, 90 to 70. We have to calculate the radians, and for that we're going to write 0. Then we're going to use math pi divided by 2. And then we need math pi multiplied by 3 divided by 2. Then it's going to be in radians, because pi is 180 degrees divided by 2 is 90 degrees, and 3 times 2 is going to make 270. Let's add here a comment. Degrees, angle in radians, 90 to 70 and 0 degrees. We need to import math. Let's go to the top, somewhere here, import math. And then we're gonna find the closest rotation. There are different ways to do that. I like to make one-liners, so this is what I'm gonna use. Let me explain. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a list of these allowed rotations, and I'm gonna find the minimum value. I'm gonna use this function to determine it. So x is gonna be each value from this one by one. I'm just gonna find absolute value, x minus door rotation. So we're gonna take 0 minus this one, then we're gonna take this one minus this one, then this one minus this one. And we're gonna get the minimum rotation that we need. So it's going to be 180 to 70, whatever we actually need to get. And then we can calculate how much do we need to rotate to get to the closest kind of 90-degree angle. For that, we're going to take closest rotation minus our actual rotation. And this is the amount that we need to rotate with. Um, let's just verify what we get before we move further. Check values. We don't need to print doors anymore. I'm going to paste here a few print statements. So I want to see my door rotation, closest rotation, and rotate. Just want to make sure that values somewhat make sense. Let's click on that one. And yeah, I think that's all okay. So in here, for example, this one, we can see the door rotation, the closest rotation. This just means that it doesn't need any rotation. And this value you can see in the end there's E minus 15. It just means that it's very close to 0. In Python, sometimes you get these values. So you can think of this as 0. In here, this is actually a good example. So door is definitely rotated. Let's open it, A28. Yeah, you can see there is a rotation. So door has some kind of rotation, which is true. And the closest rotation would be 0. So it should be like this. And we take 0 minus this angle, and we get minus whatever is rotation of the door. This is what we need. I also noticed something weird, because A2022, I think this one should be fine. Yeah, we don't need any rotation here. It's right here. But here it says that we have a rotation. The reason notice because this is a pi 314. I think I haven't included pi right here, because allowed I need 0, then I need 90, then I need math pi, which is 180, and then I need 270. So I missed one angle. I noticed it by accident because I wanted to find 314, and I knew that it has to be 0, because when it's 314 rotation, it means that it's not rotated, it's horizontal. And when there's 157, which is half of it, then it means it's vertical. So this one, for example, 825, I know that the door is going to be on left or right side. Yeah, it's right here on the right side. So I noticed an error, but we would probably notice it during rotation as well. And now the tricky part, another one, we need to get crop box. There are two ways to do this, and one is stupid simple, the other is very confusing, and I'm going to show you both. So let's just write here, get entrance door rotation, get crop box. To get crop box, there are two ways to do this. I had this function from many years ago. To be honest, I have no idea what's going on inside of it. I'm using the filter. I'm setting some built-in parameter ID parameter. I think it's got some kind of workaround I found on the forums from somebody and so on. And it's just, it's going to be very confusing, but you just know that it's going to get you crop ID. But there's also another one, less straightforward. Let me comment that one out. Let me just show you something. I'm going to select the crop box, go to add-ins, Revit lookup, Snoop selection. It's hard to get it because it doesn't have any category, and it's very hard to kind of find it because it's missing a lot of different values. However, if I'm going to go and open Revit lookup of active view, it works in Revit 2025 very well. You will notice that the crop box ID is just two values ahead of view ID. And you can test it. I tested it on all views. It's always the same. Let's go to that one. I'm going to grab the crop box, then add-ins, Revit lookup selection, then the same for the active view. Put it side by side, 2830. So the easiest way to get it is get element ID of your view, get it as integer, +2, and now this is an element ID of crop box. If you work with other Revit versions, just ensure that it's the same value. It could be +2, +1, +3, you just need to ensure that it's always +2. In 2025, it's definitely +2, so that's what I am going to use. And if you have any errors, just copy this part of the snippet. It's going to work on any Revit version just fine. But the problem is I cannot really explain it because it's really weird workaround. So we're going to use the workaround number 2, crop box equals, and we need our new plan ID. We need to convert it into an integer, but first of all, we need to convert it into a string like this. So we get this ID, we convert it into a string, then we convert it into an integer. Then we add +2, and we make a new element ID, which is going to be the crop box ID. Now I can get the crop box, which is going to be dog get element crop box ID. I know it's a weird workaround, but hey, it works, and that's exactly what we need, and it's also very simple. Now we're getting our crop box. If you don't trust me, you can use this method and that method and then check them together. I already did that. I had lots of true to true to true, so I know it works. Now maybe I hide that one. Get crop box. And here I'm going to write, it's going to be view ID +2, like this. And lastly, rotate crop box. So to rotate the crop box, what we need? I need to get the middle point. So I need to rotate from that point. So therefore, when I'm going to kind of create rotation, I rotate from the center and it's going to be rotated nicely. For that, we're going to get the bounding box of our view. So crop box, get bounding box, and based on the new plan. The reason I get the bounding box, because it's very easy to get the middle point. Let's call it origin. We need to take bounding box minimum plus bounding box maximum and divide it by 2. So what it means, when you have a box, let's say that values here are 2 and 2 and here 4 and 4. When you're going to add them together, it's going to be 6 and 6. And when you divide it by 2, it's going to be 3 and 3. And it's going to be this kind of dot in the middle. This is how we calculate the bounding box centroid. Now, we need to create an axis for rotation. Now, let's actually open documentation and I'm going to show you how rotation works. Look for rotate element. It's a method, that one. We need document, we need element to rotate, we need axis, and we need angle. Axis is if you're on the plan, you want to have a vertical line around which you're going to rotate it. And we're going to create it very, very simple. So we have the origin point in the middle, and we need to make axis from this point. For that, we need to make point 2 or point end, whatever you call it. And it has to be x, y, z, and we need to calculate x, y, and z. And origin, and it's going to have the same origin x, the same origin y, and it's going to have origin z +1 or +10, +100, doesn't matter. It's just kind of an axis around which we're going to make the rotation. Then we're going to create this axis. For that, we need a line, create bound, origin, point, end. And now we are ready to use the rotation. Let's just go back quickly. You can see to use this rotate element, we have to use element transform utils class, rotate element. So let's call that one rotate element. Then inside we need document, element, axis, document. Element is going to be crop box, axis, and then angle. I think that one. Okay, I think that's it. I think I haven't missed anything. So let me just double check. We're getting all doors from the view. Then we're getting specifically entrance doors. Then we're getting our first random door. Then we're getting a rotation. Then we're making sure we define a list of allowed angles, right? There's 0, pi divided by 2, pi, and pi multiplied 3 times 2. Okay, this is going to give us radians of these angles. Then we're going to find the closest rotation with the lambda. There are simpler ways to do this. I found this on Stack Overflow. It works fine. This is just how it works. Lastly, we're going to rotate. We're going to take the closest rotation, the current rotation. We're going to find the difference. Then we're going to get crop ID by adding 2 to the element ID of the view, which is the kind of workaround. Then we're going to get crop box. Then we get bounding box from the crop box. We get the middle point. We're creating an axis for rotation and we rotate. Yeah, to me, that looks good. Now, for example, A20, it has rotation. Now we're going to see if we're going to solve it. Let me just delete everything. And now click and see if we get any error. Okay, we get it right away. Transaction object has no attribute rollback. So we're definitely getting an error. And this one should be rolled back like this. Let's try it again because we need to see an error message. Element transform utils, expected element ID got element. Okay, that's easy to solve. So we need here crop box ID. That's it. Oh, it was even highlighted here. It was showing that, well, it should be element ID. That's okay. Good. Let's try it. Okay, I see it printing messages, so it works. Now it created all these plans. So A20, A10, and I can see it rotates, but it rotates in the wrong direction. So let's go and make somewhere here minus, right? We're making it negative. Let's see if that's gonna make the right rotation. Let's click again. And perfect. 10 is great, 20 is great. Now everything works great. Let's just verify. You might notice the distance is gonna be a little bit off. This is because we calculated the crop box before it was rotated. You could kind of flip that. You would need to change a little bit the logics. So you first would need to fix rotation. And then somewhere here where it is, you would need to calculate the crop box and change it. I'm just going to leave it the way it is. It's a minor thing. I'm totally fine, especially for tutorial. Alright guys, and this was the first step of this tutorial to generate view plans. You can see everything works just fine, and with a click of a button I generated like 40 or 50 different apartment plans, which is amazing. If I would have hundreds of them, that would also take just a few seconds extra. And the best part, I can reuse this code on every single project going forward. You can just adjust and tweak to your own needs, but that's how it works. Overall, this is amazing script. We just took 200 lines, and mostly because I used a lot of comments here. We could also kind of make it shorter. Original code I made for the actual project was like 650 lines, but this is because we had a lot more parameters to manage. We also had to place it on the sheet. We also had to manage parameters and so on. And this is something I'm going to show you in the next lessons. In the next lesson, we're going to create a special title block for our sales plans. And in the third part of the series, I'm going to show you how to take all of these plans and place them on new generated sheets correctly and how to kind of exchange the data so you have all the important information there. Because this is really important, the sales plans, creating views and placing on sheet is one thing, but managing all the related data is another one. Because as you remember, I showed you there's this occupancy. When you calculate your apartments, it's really important to know what's the sum of the living area and what's the sum of the balcony, what's the sum of the basement storage, maybe it has a terrace, garden, and so on. And I was really good at making this kind of area plans, and I know how much work goes into them. But with Revit API in Python, you're going to simplify it so much, and it's going to be just instant. Most importantly, you're going to avoid all the errors if you do it correctly. All right, guys, and that's it for this tutorial. The sample project and the code samples, they're going to be provided on Learn Revit API platform under the Views module. There's going to be a separate lesson where you can just download and copy everything and follow along the tutorial. And I hope that you enjoyed it, and I would appreciate if you leave me a comment on YouTube and let me know what you enjoyed the most about tutorial and how much time it's going to save you. Because I know that some of you work on really crazy projects with hundreds or even thousands of different rooms across multiple buildings. And I can only imagine how much time you're going to save with this one button click. And you can see it's not that complicated to create once you know a bit of Revit API and Python. And if you're completely new to Revit API, I also have an ebook, Beginner's Guide to Revit API. You're going to find a link in the description. And now, if you want to continue with this series of tutorials, if this video is already uploaded, you're going to see here the next lesson where we're going to create the title block for our sheets. Because there are a few tricks I want to show you as well. So I wish you happy coding, and I'm going to see you soon. Goodbye.